Last night, I did karaoke in front of adoption professionals. Maybe I made a fool out of myself, but it was a little fun. It was fun. But here's the thing, and I hate to admit this for anyone who was at the conference, but I'm actually a singer. I used to sing professionally, and I would never sing in karaoke because if it wasn't the exact right song with the exact right key and I haven't rehearsed it, I didn't want to embarrass myself. And I didn't want it to be anything less than the best I could. And that's not what I did last night. The good news is it was so dark, nobody knew who was up there, except for the people who came up and danced because I sang Girls Just Want to Have Fun. And it was so high, I couldn't hit the notes. So I was screaming. It was a little embarrassing, but I had fun. And then I went and danced with the Destiny girls from Destiny Adoptions. It's been fun, you guys. I'm at the Florida Adoption Conference. Hello, happy Friday. It's Becca for my Friday Live. I'm at the Florida Adoption Conference in Daytona Beach. It just ended. I get so hyped when I come to these things. All of my business is online, over the phone, on Zoom, on the computer. So when I get face-to-face time with the agencies and attorneys and partners that we have that we couldn't run a business without, it is so valuable and so fulfilling. And it was just so fun to squeeze the people that have helped to grow my business with me. So it was a lot of fun. We do a lot of work in Florida. So some of my fellow consultants were there from, I think there were four different consultants there, a whole bunch of agencies, a whole bunch of attorneys and social workers, and it was just great. So great news for our clients. Hopefully we have some new connections that we can work with and, solidified some old relationships as well as got some new relationships. So hello, happy Friday. I learned a ton. And I guess my goodness, I have more notes than I thought. I usually come on here and I don't know what I'm going to talk about. There's a couple things, though, that I want to say, and I kind of just want to go through my notes. It's so fun to hear some of my friends who are so knowledgeable and so amazing at what they do give a talk to educate professionals. And so it was really fun to cheer them on and to learn from them. And as I have told you many, many times, I'm 11 years in and I continue to learn how to be the best parent for my child. And every time I leave one of these conferences, I'm reminded at just how way more than important it is, how imperative it is for us who chose to build our family through adoption to continue to educate ourselves about what that means for us, for our parents' our children's first mother and first father, and for our children, more importantly. And so I'm preaching to the choir because if you're watching this, then you care and you want to get educated. But please don't ever think that when you bring your baby home, that it's the end of the journey. I want to relay a really funny story to you. We talked a lot about narrative. We talked a little bit about telling our children stories. We talked about the nuances of transracial and all this stuff. And one of the things about transracial adoption, when you go out in public, you're a conspicuous family, right? People will look, people will ask questions, people will make comments, whether you've asked people for them or not. And one of the speakers today who's brilliant, and I am absolutely going to bring her into my communities because, she blew me away. But she legit has 20 children. So if you could just take a minute and think about that, maybe pray for her. She has 20 children and she has a transracial family. And she had 6 of her kids with her when she went to some store somewhere. And they were of different races. All of them were various races. And somebody said something stupid and said, something stupid like, those couldn't be your children. Something to the effect of those could never be your children. And she's like, as a matter of fact, they are my children. I'm their mother. And they looked perplexed and said, I don't understand. And she said, well, let me tell you, when I was little, I've always had a fascination for various cultures and races. So as I got older, I made it my mission to sleep with a man of from all different backgrounds and cultures. So I tried to sleep with a lot of different men of different backgrounds. Oh man, everyone laughed. It was hilarious. I'm like, oh, that's a good one. I mean, people have asked me before, oh, is your husband Mexican? Because my child's Mexican and I'm white. And one time I remember when he was very young, I looked at the person and I'm like, no. And they're like, I don't understand. Well, how is your son Mexican? I'm like, mm. Just walked out. So sometimes it's really fun to fuck with people and just kind of mess around with them and have fun with it. And other times you might want to stop and actually educate. So we had a whole session about adopting older children. We talked a lot about bonding and attachment, identity. We talked about, this is a good one, especially as we're thinking about transracial. And I'll get into some of these more in depth later. But so if you continue to follow me on my lives, I'll probably dig deep into some of these. But this was a good question. And I remember hearing this question when I decided to adopt a child of a different race, which is, if you are planning or if you have matched with and will be adopting a child of a different race, different culture than you were born and raised into, you need to ask yourself, are you willing to create a new family culture based on everyone in your family? So it's not, I'm white, but since my child's Mexican, we will go to these restaurants, these places, these cultural events for him. No, you don't want to single out your child for looking different from you, for having a different background. Your family as a unit has to adapt and create a new culture, a new family culture. So this same woman was saying that she went to an adoption conference and they were doing some sort of, I don't know, I think identity exercise. And one of the questions was, go to the side of the room based on what race you consider yourself, white, black, whatever it was. And she pulled up a chair and went into the middle. And when they asked her why, she said, my family is made up of so many different races that I identify with all of them. And I thought that was really powerful to really take to heart, that you need to immerse yourself in your family unit the way it looks today, even if it's different from what you know or what you grew up with. And so I thought that that was a really good thing to think about. I also thought it was really interesting when she mentioned developmental grieving. When my son was born, I signed up for those weekly emails, and tell me if you did the same thing, if you have adopted. I signed up for weekly emails that I'm just looking to see if there's people. Okay. That told me what was happening developmentally with my child every single week. And every single week I would get these emails, and my son was spot on. I mean, in everything. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, how do they know so much, right? So when and I should be calling her by her name. Hold on. I'm going to tell you because she's so fabulous. But Lauren Smith. So when Lauren talked about developmental grieving, she said that there's pivotal points that this happens for adoptees. And it might not be what you think, but at age 3, 7, 11, and 15. So my son has now reached 2 of those. And I can remember distinctly that it was at age 3 that I started seeing that he was processing this idea of adoption and how he came to our family. And it manifests in certain ways that was obviously obvious enough that when I stepped back, I was like, oh, this is what's going on. He was crying at certain things. He was making comments, the same comments over and over again about the loss of a mom. And so I realized, oh, he's just processing it. And then I really didn't see anything for a while, and he is 11 now. Well, I don't know if I don't remember age 7 so much, but he is 11 now, and certainly processing at a much deeper level than ever before, and just for the very first time, starting to ask some questions. And as they're talking, I'm like, oh my God, this is really a thing. How do you know, these studies are really spot on, and I couldn't believe it. But so you may notice that if you are an adoptive parent, and if you are, raise your hand at any adoptive parents here. You may notice some things at age 3, 7, 11, 15 through emotions and behaviors of your child maybe grieving or trying to figure out identity, adoption, all of that stuff. Okay, so that's some of what I learned in that session. And then my friend Valerie Trumbauer from New Parents Academy. And by the way, if you are becoming a new parent, I highly recommend you take her online course that will prepare you, because there will be so many things that you will be so confused about and so frustrated about with your baby when you bring them home. But she spoke specifically about post-adoption depression, which is a thing that is not talked about enough. And hopeful adoptive parents are not given that information prior to adopting, that this may happen and it's normal, and here's how to deal with it. So many times we are scared, and I know I experienced this in some way. I don't think post-adoption or depression, but just when it gets really, really hard, we are so afraid to say anything because of the journey that we chose to walk through to build our family, right? And especially me as a single mom. Like I chose, and I put that in air quotes very loosely, to adopt as a single mom. And I knew that wouldn't be easy. So I felt like I had no right to complain at all, or just say when I needed help or when I was struggling. And for so many reasons, these struggles can creep up in a big way for adoptive parents, new adoptive parents. And it's okay and it's normal, and there are ways to deal with it. But I love one thing that Valerie said is that when you go into a new country, right, and nobody speaks your language, which I'm guessing for most of us is English, it's really hard to communicate, right? And it can get really frustrating when you're like, I'm just trying to ask where the bathroom is and nobody's understanding me. And she said, you don't speak the same language as your baby. They speak cry. You speak English. I loved that. I love that she said that. You don't speak the same language. They speak the language of cry. You speak the language of English. And it's so true, and trying to figure all of that out. But she gave a statistic that as many as 65% of adoptive parents experience post adoption depression. And it usually starts after the first month, which I thought also was interesting. So if that's you, um, or if you're going into adoption, just know to, find that safe space that you can talk about these things. Find that adoption competent therapist. Find other adoptive families that have experienced maybe the same things you have. Ask your consultant, ask your home study agency. Has anybody that you know experienced this before? I am experiencing these things and I need some help and guidance. And also take Valerie's class, newparentsacademy.com. You can go check it out. And make sure you take care of yourself after you adopt. You have to take care of yourself. So we're going to be talking more about post-adoption depression. I've talked about it before. Also, something was brought up in one of the sessions, and I won't go through all of it right now, but about having doctors on your team that you can call quickly to understand, like if you're in a match and all of a sudden new information comes up, right? The mom is in labor, going into labor, and she says something about being bipolar. And that is not something you knew about. And maybe you didn't think you were open to that. And suddenly you are hit with this new information, right? When you are so excited to walk forward with this adoption, that kind of stops you in your track. Who are you going to call? Instead of just automatically saying no or automatically saying yes, you should probably consult with somebody to understand what exactly that means overall. And if that's something you feel like you can handle and move forward with or not. So you want to have your people in place that at the drop of a hat, if something quickly changes and you need to make a quick decision, who can you call? Okay, there's a lot more I could go over, but some of these points were just so poignant, and I get so geeked out and learning this stuff and so passionate that I want to share everything that I know with you. Okay, I want to mention, and if you go to our website, I believe, if you go, okay, I'll tell you about that in a second. But for those of you who are thinking about adoption, who have not yet adopted and are not yet on your journey, so this isn't for people who have already signed up with us to work with us or are already with 4 different agencies. I mean, it could be, but for people who are really just starting out and not quite sure how to take that first step, or not quite sure what adoption really looks like, or you want to go forward, but something's holding you back, you have a lot of fear, or you have a lot of questions. If I'm speaking to you at all, I want you to listen up. Last year, we did this thing called the 5-day adoption Kickstarter. It was so much fun, so educational, so interactive, and it really propelled people to get started in their adoption journey. And from that, we had about, 7 people start their adoption process with the support that they needed, with things in place, whether it be with us, other consultants, or just independently, whatever it was. It's 5 days starting on Halloween. You can sign up. I know that there's links probably wherever you're watching this, or you can go to rgadoptionconsulting.com adoption dash Kickstarter and sign up. It's a pop-up Facebook group. I will be going on doing a live every day only inside of this adoption Facebook group. Every day, I think at 11 or 11:15. It's written somewhere and I can't check. I will talk for probably 10, 15 minutes, do a quick education on a certain topic, and then give you an assignment to go do. You will report back on that assignment the next day when we meet again. And if you do, and if you play full out and you report back and you show me that you're doing the work, you have a chance to win some awesome prizes. So we're going to talk about things like mindset. We're going to talk about things like if you are in a partnership, how to get on the same page with your partner, or really identifying the criteria that you're open to, or what fears you have. We are going to talk about how to find the right home study agency. What questions should you be asking, and how do you even know if a place is the right place for you to get a home study? We're going to be leading you to opening your world up to some new places to go learn, all sorts of things. But it's really designed to kickstart you to move forward on your adoption journey. So I don't want to be the only one in there talking to myself. I'm hoping it's as good, if not better, than the last time I had it. So that's a challenge to you. Come join and in your mind think, we want to make this better than the last one. That would be a hard task. So join me inside of there. Play full out. Let's get you started with the right information. One of the things I learned, more and more agencies, FYI, if you're also getting started, more and more agencies are, number one, no longer taking families on a list. They're only reaching out to consultants when they need you. Okay, that's number one. Number two, a lot of agencies and attorneys are only working with families who are working with consultants. Why? Can anyone guess why? The reason why they want to work with, God, all of a sudden the heat's on in my room. They want to work with educated families. They don't have time to educate you. Their main focus is the birth mom. And so they know if you are working with a reputable consultant where education is a focus, we are one of them. We are one of them. That they're not going to have to hold your hand as much as if you're just coming in off the streets. And then there's others who will, they don't care. But so more and more, the best client is the most educated one. I hear it time and time and time again. So the whole purpose of this Kickstarter is to really get you started on the right path so that people want to work with you. And so that you're really prepared with the knowledge that you need just to get started. Because we couldn't get it all in 5 days. So I hope that you'll join me. That's rgadoptionconsulting.com/adoption-Kickstarter. Please go sign up today. Come join me in there. Next week on Monday, come in costume. There might be a prize for that too. And we will have some fun and learn together. Have a wonderful weekend. I hope to see some of you on Monday. Bye for now.